Well, OUTA has called for the looming deadline for the renewal of driver license cards to be extended by the 31st of August in just a couple of days' time. Motorists who have expired cards need to have them renewed. It's after the renewal dates were extended due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The OUTA CEO, Wayne Duvanaga, joins us now. Wayne, we already had an extension from last year by about a period of a year due to the delays that were brought on by COVID-19. Why should the Transport Minister consider yet another extension?
Well, good evening. The extension wasn't necessarily granted as a result of COVID-19. The problems with driver's licenses not being able to be renewed was happening long before the pandemic came along. It might have exacerbated this situation. And they still haven't dealt with the underlying issues. So we find that even with an 8-month extension, here we are today, and hundreds of thousands of motorists still don't have their licenses. They probably won't have them. Most of them won't have them by the end of the deadline. And so what we're going to have is people with expired licenses driving around, and that opens them up to abuse at roadblocks and so many other problems. So what we want is the government to this time extend it and then fix the underlying issues of the online booking system, which it doesn't work, the corruption that is taking place around these problems, the technical difficulties in the testing centers, the poor service levels. There's just so much that is systemically wrong with this whole process.
How long would you want to see the extension that you're asking for?
You know, I think that's for the minister. I mean, we're not saying extend it for a week or so. It looks like it's going to have to be for a few months, but it doesn't help extending, and then we come to the same problem 2 to 3 or 4 months later. What has to happen, we believe, is the minister needs to engage with all stakeholders, including civil society, so that we can resolve the problem together. For instance, we've also suggested that the renewal period of 5 years gets extended to 10 years. This has been around in many countries for a long time already. In fact, it was in a gazette in 2013 by the then Minister of Transport, Dupuy Peters, to do just that, and they reneged on that, or they changed their minds on it before promulgating that into being a year later. Now that in itself would just halve the amount of licenses they would have to issue, which is causing this volume is causing massive administrative burden to them.
Of course, one of the things that we've also been told about is the reduced capacity, particularly at some of the centers that are supposed to be processing these applications and running the various tests that need to be done. Do you think that that's something that can be fixed over time? Because as you were pointing out a little bit earlier, these problems have been there for a while, but have been worsened so much so by COVID-19.
Yeah, and look, that's why I say working with stakeholders and civil society, we can find solutions. We need to move away from this archaic process. Yes, they have introduced online booking. That's great. One would imagine that would alleviate problems, but it's actually made it worse because the public are struggling to get those slots, but they're able to find touts who are able to slot them in without even booking online for a fee, that is. So that is just corruption disguised as social entrepreneurship. And these are the problems we've got to get over. Training of people at the testing centers, getting the equipment working, eye testing, everything else. It's actually a joke, but you know, this is a problem we find in the Department of Transport across a number of fronts. You know, if you just look at all the problems that they have, they were about to launch R2 after years of preparation. They came to the 1st of July, and again, they were unable to launch the demerit point system. eNatus is in a mess. It's broken. The Road Accident Fund has collapsed. The International Air Travel Services Council hasn't been put in place for a number of months. This list of what goes wrong in the Department of Transport and its administrative inefficiencies and deficiencies is a serious problem for this country. And I think it's the whole department, and they need to have an introspective look at what's going on there.
As it stands, there hasn't been any hint yet that there will be, in fact, an extension for motorists who are waiting for some of these applications to be processed. What does that mean? Are we likely to see this ending up in court, as most things do these days?
Yeah, I think it's going to get to that eventually, you know. What we advise motorists is to do what you can, but make notes, make diary entries, show that you have tried, take screenshots of the system, take photos of queues that you've had to stand in, give as much evidence you have. So if you are fined for having an expired license, not a criminal offense, by the way, but if you get the 500 rand fine or whatever fine that applies to it, elect to go to court. You can revoke that and go and elect to go to court. And if there are a number of people that are in that situation, OUTA will be looking to possibly introduce a process that takes thousands of cases on, as we did on the e-toll matter, and go to court. And I think a court's going to find it very difficult if people have tried to follow due process and the state's inefficiency has forced them to drive with expired licenses. And this is the sorry state of affairs, that people want to get their licenses, but the state makes it difficult to do so. It forces them to not abide by the law, not because they don't want to, because they just can't.
South Africa, all right. Sorry, apologies for that. Wayne Dubanaga, he is with OUTA, and of course, Stephen is